Life happens and the world throws its best at you. I mean, think about the last 3 months. Could you have predicted, could anyone have predicted what we've seen in terms of the simple oppression against you as an entrepreneur? But I can tell you, the best entrepreneurs in the world look back on their history and have a story to tell about how they overcame obstacles, how they became successful even in the face of massive pressure and went on to win. Today's guest is Jack Kemp. I'm going to introduce Jeff in just a second. But before I do that, welcome to the most positive place on the planet for insanely implementable ideas. EdTalks Live is next. Hey, welcome to the show. My name is Ed Rush, 5-time #1 best-selling author, your host for the most positive place on the planet for insanely implementable ideas. I'm pretty fired up for today's show. I've got Jack Kemp in the house. We're going to talk about how to survive the Blitz. And listen, the last 3 months, I mean, you're going to look back on the last 3 months. I'm telling you, 5 years from now, you're going to look back at this as one of the most significant moments in your life and business, because the pressure that it created in your financial stream will create new decisions. In fact, for many of you, new businesses or new careers that will simply change the world. Before I introduce Jeff, I'm going to jump in the chat and say hello to my friends. Jump in on the right-hand side there. Tell me who you are, where you are, what you do. If you're on Facebook, that's right below. And, you know, I've had a couple emails this week from some of our longtime listeners. People be like, hey, Ed, I've seen every one of the shows, and I haven't seen you say hello over in chat. Well, this is part of the community. And look, hey, like there's business deals that happen over here on chat. I mean, there's people. I was meeting with a client just 2 days ago, and she said, I've had more people reach out to me and help me that saw me on your show. So make sure that you jump in and say hello. Back home, by the way, the last show you guys saw me do was right in front of the White House just a couple of days ago. Barry, what's up, dude? Good to see you. Welcome back. It's California's on fire again, and I don't understand. It's like early in the summer for this, but here it is again. He said, "Yeah, happening all around." Mike Joyce said, "I decided not to join the NFL as a quarterback because I was afraid of blindside hits. Otherwise, I would have been among the stars. You know, Montana, Brady, Kemp." And I said, "You know, Mike, could have been a whole wing in the NFL Hall of Fame called Toys Story." What's up, Wendell Bugs? Good to see you. Welcome back, Robert, my man. On vacation with the grandkids, man. Very cool. Hey, Diana, welcome back. Just picked fresh grapes. Our grapes, second year, by the way, we had a little plague on our grapes. Not good. Maybe we could use your help. Good morning, Jim Butts. Good to see you all. Also, Sally. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate what you said. Celia, welcome back to the show. My man, Pat Zemer. For those of you who don't know Pat, he's coming on the show as well. Pat went from not being able to afford a Thanksgiving turkey to now running an 8-figure business. It's a crazy, crazy story. Hey, Kevin, good to be back. Thank you for your positivity as well. What's up? From Motown, Philly. What's up, Melanie? All right, so I'm going to bring on my man, Jeff. Let me do a quick introduction and just tell you, first of all, he's a man who needs no introduction. I'm going to play actually a really quick video as I do this intro. But Jeff is a quarterback for strengthening teams. He quarterbacked in the NFL from 1981 to 1992. You might also recognize his father, Jack Kemp, former vice presidential candidate and Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. They were the first of only 6 sets of father-son quarterbacks. Preserving through the highs and lows of pro football gave Jeff a valuable perspective on teams and leadership and life. We're going to talk about that today. He also speaks to the business and community groups, young people about relationships, hard work, and teamwork. I'm going to show a quick clip so that you can remember Jack Kemp and Steve Largent connecting, and then I'm going to bring Jeff.
Pace for our team.
Kemp with the snap, drops back to pass, fires one toward the end zone. Largent's got it, touchdown Seahawks. Eric Lane and Boyce Green, the split backs behind Jeff Kemp on first down. Kemp back to pass, has a look, fires one in the end zone. Largent's got it, same play as before, touchdown Seahawks.
Jeff Kemp, welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, Ed, thanks. It's great to be with you, buddy.
You look the same as you did back in those pictures. Is there some sort of fountain of youth, or it's just like a mindset thing? How does that work?
I don't know, but you know what I was thinking is it sure was nice to throw to someone as good as Steve Largent. They really make you look good. I had a receiver in college named David Shula. His dad was Don Shula,
yep,
the legendary coach. And Dave used to catch all my passes, no matter where I threw them, which kind of gave me a little bit better look in the NFL. I only had one team scout me, the Rams, but a lot of it was thanks to David Shula. So good receivers make a lot of quarterbacks feel good.
Good offensive lines, good receivers, good blocking, running backs. I mean, it actually goes to what you help companies with, which is teams being great. And right now, I mean, I did it in the intro, but right now, it's like, you know, people talk about the COVID waves. Well, there's like one wave after another of seemingly bad news, especially for business owners, and you help people survive that sort of thing. So what do you think about what's happening right now?
Well, I think most of your listeners, entrepreneurs, Americans, sports fans, know what a blitz is. A blitz in football is when the defense sends more people at the offense than they're ready for, than they can block. Sometimes they'll come off the blind side, as your one teammate referenced. The blitz is very dangerous. Fumbles, interceptions, sacks, losses. But at the same time, the defense they don't have as many people that are covering the pass or playing deep in the middle of the field. So there's an opportunity that comes with the blitz. The word crisis in Chinese language has two symbols that represent crisis. One is danger. The other is opportunity, and they're juxtaposed. So I'm just reminding us all as we use this metaphor that a blitz, a crisis, a curveball, that is something that is dangerous. It can be painful. It's got risk to it, but it also has opportunity, and it depends a whole lot on your mindset and your attitude. But Ed, I'll make a point. You're a coach. I'm a coach. I was an average quarterback with the Rams. We had Eric Dickerson, so we went to the playoffs, and I didn't hurt the team and did pretty well. Then I went to the 49ers, and I became a leading passer in only 1 year in the NFC while Joe Montana was hurt, because I had amazing coaching from Bill Walsh and Mike Holmgren. Okay, and then I went to the Seahawks, and I was back to being a backup quarterback who wasn't the best in the league, and it had a whole lot to do with coaching. So in the blitzes of this moment, number one, COVID and the spread of the pandemic and the social distancing that it's created. Number two, the economic shutdown that the government has mandated, okay? And number three, a whole lot of racial unrest, waking up to some injustices and pain that we need to wake up to, but then some exaggerated stuff coming from some controversial groups, you know, throwing in at nighttime protests and looting and stuff, and then what's going on Twitter and the political campaign where everything's politicized, okay? We feel division, we feel economic crush, and we feel separation because of COVID and fear. And I would just say that in this time, you've got to be talking to coaches and mentors, and you need to be mentoring and coaching your children and your company. Leaders must communicate, because in the absence of communication, Ed, people assume the worst.
Yeah, I mean, it starts there, and it's interesting that you mentioned the opportunity. That I had not heard that about the symbols in that language.
In the Chinese language, yeah. Danger and opportunity at the same moment.
I really like that. So I had a conversation. So I have a little prayer group that we meet basically on the phone every week for about an hour and pray. And the week after the first wave of COVID, it was basically the last week in March. I had just come back from a speaking event. All of California shut down, and you know, everybody's like trying to figure out what's going on. And I remember as we were doing this little prayer meeting, I said, you know, this might actually be the breakthrough we've all been praying for. And it sounds like you're taking advantage of a bad situation, but fundamentally, the earth creation goes through this ebb and flow, and great fortunes are made out of adversity. Great businesses are made out of adversity. And the truth is, people get very complacent when things are just okay. So now's the time to really dial it in, right?
Great lessons are learned in adversity, okay? How many things did you learn just because it was easy and it happened automatically, versus taking a risk, making a decision, stepping out there, failing or getting beaten up a little bit, but then learning from it? That's how Thomas Edison, you know, gave us the light bulb.
Yep.
So you need to make decisions. You need to have courage. You need to move forward. but it's done in humility, because humility is what makes us learn. If a quarterback said, hey, I don't care if they're blitzing me or not, I'm going to run the play I called in the huddle. It's a great play, and I'm really good. Here we go. He's lying on his back, with a 300-pounder in his face soon. You got to be humble enough to be willing to change. And I want to give people, right at the beginning of the show, let me give people a game plan, a strategy for facing blitzes, okay? Number one, you need to have a humble, team-oriented attitude. Humble means you're willing to learn and adapt and change. Team-oriented means you cannot do it on your own, okay?
As you're listening, I would love someone in chat just to keep notes of what Jeff's about to drop some serious content bombs. So the first one was, let's say the first one again, a humble.
You need a humble, team-oriented attitude.
Great.
Any blitz. You will not beat blitzes alone, okay?
All right.
You also will accomplish great things alone. This isn't a solo sport, this life thing. The entrepreneurial world, it takes individuals, but they don't go far if they don't figure out how to get a team united around the same vision. So number one, you need that humble team approach to get through blitzes. And here's 3 strategies. Number one, take a long-term view of life and the situation and the economy. Don't just look at this moment. What are we going to do for a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Number 2, be willing to change. That's humility, right? Be willing to audibilize, sight adjust, change the play. You can't run the old one, and make a decision, all right? Number 2, be willing to change. Be willing to change your personality and start talking less if you're always blabbing, or listen more. Or if you never speak up, speak up. If you're not generous, start being generous. So make a change, be willing to change. And number 3 is take your eyes off yourself and your company and focus on blessing other people. Those who beat the blitz don't sit there in the pocket worried about getting hit. They get their eyes downfield on the wide receiver that's changing his route. They get the ball to the receiver. They get hit in the face. They get knocked down, and they find out from their back that it was a touchdown, and it all paid off, because there's always sacrifice with success, and there's always sacrifice in good relationships. Someone's got to apologize first. Someone's got to forgive first. Someone has to say, you're more important than me. What do you need to succeed? Let me help you. That's what it means to bless others and bless your customers. Don't just say, what can our customers can do for us? What can we do for them that shocks them?
Yeah, that's good. You as a quarterback found out if the play worked or not by the crowd noise as you were face down. Is that basically how you found out whichever stadium you were in? If
you were in an opposing stadium and it was really quiet, that was good.
That was good, right? But if they're screaming, if they all of a sudden start cheering, you think, oh man, I better get up and go tackle somebody.
Yeah, it's intercepted.
So that's good. By the way, I'm going to welcome some of you who just joined us. My name is Ed Rush. I'm here with Jeff Kemp. This is How to Survive the Blitz. And if you just joined us, jump into chat and say hello. Tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do. Some really great comments that just came in. I want to say hello to my man, David Zetz, who's having a banner 2 months. I'm going to have David on the show and have him tell his story. He massively adjusted. This is a guy in the fitness world, by the way, Jeff. Massively adjusted and is now having 5-figure months. Really, really huge. Rick McLean, who just sent me a great video this morning. Thank you for that, Rick. You're cranking it. Hey, James. Put a Pratt hat in the race for president. Yep. If I remember correctly, he said, I met Jeff back in '85 at the Billy Graham Crusade.
Anaheim Stadium, Billy Graham Crusade. They gave me 3 minutes. It was exciting.
That's a hot 3 minutes right there. Rob Jones, who's from the Pacific Northwest, said, yeah, I remember that game that we just showed. He said, a crisis means there's a hole somewhere else. Got to keep digging. Thank you, Diana, for your awesome comments. Pat as well. And Rob says, how many times in a row did Jeff run a play or the coach tell him to run a play when it failed the first or second time? I've always wondered if they just say, let's try it again. So, and it always is an adjustment. I mean, I take it from my days in flying fighters, flying F-18s. I mean, they taught us very early on in war planning that your plan basically never survives contact with the enemy. It's a nice place to start.
Yes.
But change happens, the world happens, and truly you're adjusting to all the changes in the world. So you line your 11 guys up, and the 11 guys on the other side don't just stay in the same place. They move around, and then you got to change as well. And really, that's what's happening. What are your thoughts on what are some keys to agility for an entrepreneur who's trying to continue to be to be agile. I mean, sometimes it's frustrating, frankly, just to have to deal with the latest Facebook change or algorithm. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I like talking to other people and processing my ideas and figuring out what they're doing, okay? But you can go overboard at trying to get so much advice before you make a decision that you kind of get, paralyzed. Now, most entrepreneurs, they're not exactly paralyzed. They're used to making decisions. But I think it makes sense to talk to a few people, get a couple creative ideas, and then make your decision and go for it. But realize you're going to be adjusting on the fly. Like, my favorite part of the game was 2-minute drill.
Yeah.
At that point, the coaches had put all their coaching into me. They gave me kind of a short list of excellent plays. And then I ran the offense real time on the field and called the plays that I thought were going to work. And I actually felt a lot more free and confident during 2-minute drills. And that's almost what the economy is forcing on us right now. Okay. But making a decision and communicating it to your people and believing in it. And as soon as it's really wrong, and it's really wrong, then admit it. They already know it's wrong. They're going to find out whether you're an arrogant idiot who's naive and ignorant, or whether you are humble and someone they still want to keep following, because they expect you to make mistakes. So I would say to a lot of us entrepreneur-minded people, you're very successful because you're not afraid of risks and you have a certain confidence.
Yeah.
But I want to remind you, the biggest pitfall in all of human history, every leader you see fall, every athlete you see fall, every Hollywood person, every politician you see fall, because of pride.
Yeah.
Okay? So the sooner you apologize and admit and say, hey, we got to shift course here, guys. We got to audibilize. Anyone have any good ideas? But communicate to your team. If they see you're honest, that you're humble, that you're facing reality and helping them face reality, they'll switch gears with you and they'll buy in.
It's interesting what you said about the 2-minute drill. I was thinking about this in terms of, the combat experience I had in the airplane, but I was also thinking about it. I was a college baseball player. Baseball is a great sport in the sense that you have a lot of time to think about things, but it's also a really messed up sport because you have a lot of time to think about things. And I was thinking about what you said about—
Is that another word for boring?
Well, yeah, it could be. My kids, by the way, I love. So I put both my kids into football, and I played baseball literally to my senior year in college, and I had no desire to put my kids in baseball at all. There's a lot of standing. So I started them in flag football, but both of my kids begged me, and now they're playing baseball. So that's just the way it works, I guess. So I was thinking about this in terms of entrepreneurship, because, for example, one of the things I do is train speakers how to communicate effectively from the stage. People get so nervous if they have a week or two, but if I just put someone on stage, like literally have them stand up at my event, give them a microphone and ask them questions, they won't be nervous. There'll be no butterflies because they're on. They're just on, Yeah. And I was thinking, what can an entrepreneur do? I'm just thinking out loud now. What can you do as an entrepreneur to put yourself in a motion situation? Because if you think about things, you're gonna be the market's gonna pass you by anyway if you think about them too much. I'm just thinking out loud. This is not even necessarily a question. I'm just thinking it just talks about how to get in motion,
Well, one of the best pieces of coaching advice I ever got was from a coach named Scott Sticksel, a business coach who I hired when I was running a nonprofit organization, Stronger Families, in Seattle. And one of the things that stuck with me that Scott said, he said, always try to out-bless other people. If you think of the concept of generosity, of kindness, of initiating positive action, always try to out-bless others. The fascinating thing is, pretty soon, that so touches and surprises people that it swings back to bless you. You don't do something nice so someone does something nice back. But the entrepreneur who contacts their clients that are hurting with empathy versus just selling their product, saying, hey, we got to sell something right now because the economy is bad, as opposed to check in, how's your family? Do you have any elderly relatives that are sick? We just want to have concern. In fact, our staff sometimes prays for people. We're concerned for you. Or doing something, sending out some free resource or some extra value. Do something generous to bless others. That's a decision you make right now. It shapes your character. It gives you the sense of doing action, and it warms your clientele and your partners to you.
It's really good. So it speaks to Diana, by the way, put these notes into chat, which thank you for that. She said, number 1, willing to learn. Number 2, work well with your team. Number 3, long-term view. Number 4, willing to change. Number 5, bless your clients. I really like this concept of blessing. And it speaks to fundamentally the number 1 rule in marketing is it's not about you, it's about the person you're speaking to. So most marketers speak about themselves most of the time when really they should be speaking to the person who they're trying to communicate. But this blessing actually, I think, takes it even a step farther. It's a step farther than what do you want so that I can give it to you. It's how can I bless you? And it actually works the other way too. I've said this in the past. Those who've watched the show before know one of the ways I deal with criticism. So if somebody says something nasty online, instead of responding, I usually pray. Literally, I say, God, would you just bless that person? Because God's blessing will bring them to the place that they should be, and it'll bring me to the place that I should be. Yeah. But I love this idea of blessing. It's really, really quite an interesting extra step, really.
I'm in this network called the Marriage Collective, and it's a bunch of nonprofit leaders and church leaders and researchers and media folk trying to strengthen marriage across the nation, which we need. And we couldn't have our meeting this year, so they communicated to us that they were canceling their summit. And I got a box in the mail, shoebox size. And it had nice handwritten notes, and we're really disappointed we can't meet with you live, but we figure you might as well take advantage of COVID and lockdown to focus on the thing that we all care about anyway, your own marriage. So here's a hammock that we're gifting to you to go out with your sweetie and enjoy a nice swing and have a good conversation and focus on your marriage. They out-blessed us, okay? And they said, hey, let's take this moment and do something kind for these folks.
That's cool.
What can you do for your people? I mean, if you filmed a little short 15-second video saying, you know what, I'm concerned for all of you clients. First and foremost, your families, of course, your employees. But if there's anything that we could ever do for you or something you'd like us to pray for, let us know. That personal touch would blow people away. Now, you didn't make a sale today. It didn't change the bottom line for this quarter, but it's going to change the bottom line half a year from now and a year from now.
Yeah, it will, because I mean, here, think about this. And again, this isn't even the motive, but a year from now, when you and your wife get on the hammock, who are you thinking about? You're going to remember
who gave us that.
Who gave the hammock? It's a great business point. So there was a guy, I wish I could remember his name. Essentially, what he did to all of his best clients is he sent them a Rolex, and it went way beyond any budgeting.
I guess.
But he always sent his best clients a Rolex, and when he was asked, he said, "Well, every time they look at their watch, who do you think they're thinking of?" And it's like, might not pay back that year, but the referral centers that you're going to get from that people. So my friend Bill Glazer has a phrase which follows into this, which is, he says, you can't out bless good, which means the more blessing you put out into the world, it's going to chase you down, and that's not the reason to do it, but it is interesting as a business philosophy,
Well, I think in a time like this, it's crucial for a leader to realize that people that are dependent upon your company feel even more out of control than you. Okay. And your clients are feeling out of control.
Yeah.
And the media is stirring fear. And so follow the Franklin Delano Roosevelt philosophy. The only thing to fear is fear itself. Well, if a leader can talk to people, it dissipates fear. In the absence of communication, they're going to assume the worst. So go out of your way with Zoom. Go out of your way with personal phone calls. Go out of your way with a personal note to communicate to people.
Yeah.
And the key things to communicate that I think change everything in life are, number 1, gratitude. And number 2, a hopeful vision. Okay? A hopeful vision takes the long term into perspective. And it says, you know what? I remember that story in the Bible about that guy Joseph. He got rejected by his brothers, thrown in a pit, sent to Egypt, stuck in jail. They falsely accused him of rape. He was really an honorable guy. He didn't do it. He couldn't get out of jail for 2 years. But it all turned around because he never stopped being a faithful man, loving God and being ready to serve. He became number 2 in Egypt, and he's the one who had the economic plan that saved the Egyptian nation. Even his own family came, and he fed them. And he said, don't worry, you guys. What you meant for evil, punishing me, God meant for good. So you got to have that long-term, hopeful view, right?
Yeah.
You know, Jesus himself, gosh, it looked like a failure. It looked like a disaster when he went in the grave. But it turned around big time on Easter. 500 people saw it live. It's changed a million lives, millions of lives. And so that's we all love a comeback story. And God has wired that into humanity, comeback stories. We mess up so bad that he knows that, and he gives us an opportunity to turn it around and turn bad things to good. So I really think that the leader's job is, number 1, to give a hopeful vision, and number 2, something everyone can participate in, gratitude.
It's good.
What are you thankful for? What do you say? Something you're thankful for about the other people on this team. Say thankful for something about your family. Say something you're thankful about this challenge of not being able to go into the office and being, at home more often. Express gratitude. It changes the attitude of everything around you.
I'm going to challenge you watching in chat right now. Jump in, say one thing you're thankful for. It could be your health, could be the weather. By the way, it's beautiful in San Diego right now. It could be your government. We actually have, I know it's hard right now, but I was talking to my wife last night. I'm like, we have this amazing form of government. I was in Washington, Jeff, the last 2 days, just doing some little praying actually. And I talked to a whole bunch of the Secret Service agents that were around the White House. And I thought, man, it's amazing. No matter who the president is, whether they agree with him or not, those agents are committed to duty. I said, not many countries are like that. Most of them have like the military guys in charge. And I was just being thankful for that. So I want you to jump in the chat while I take a quick break to welcome those of you to the show. I would love for you right in chat right now, just to say one thing you're thankful for. It could be the smallest thing or it could be the biggest thing. So for example, Brian Wallace, who said, my family and another little one due in September. Come on, man. Nicely done, dude. My little girl was, my youngest was born 2 years ago, September 3rd. So we're coming up on number 2. Some great comments in chat. By the way, if you just joined us, and many of you just did, my name is Ed Rush. I'm the host of EdTalks Live, the most positive place on the planet for insanely implementable ideas. I'm here with Jack Kemp. We're talking about how to survive the blitz of life. We're talking about right now about gratitude and focusing on blessing others. It's just an incredible approach, I think, to business. But I'd love for you to jump into chat. Tell me what you're most thankful for and what you're most grateful for. And I'll jump through a few of these comments. By the way, Pat Zemer said, to pivot is critical and speed more often wins. Man, isn't that true? David Zetz, longtime friend and client. Life is not a solo sport. David, by the way, is a very successful basketball referee, similar to my dad. I also brought on my first team member. What's up, Neil? Amazing fitness coach, and he's watching his first EdTalks to change the world. David or Neil, jump into chat and say hello too. Welcome to the family. Rob says, what's amazing is when we have an issue, our best foot forward is serving someone else with the same issue, and we find the answers we're seeking via obedience. I'm going to talk about that, by the way, Rob, on Tuesday's show. I'm going to do a segment on how to get to yes, actually, Rob. And part of the show on Tuesday is going to be quick solutions to current problems. Like, for example, the restaurants are trying to figure out how to do business in this current environment. Well, you could make money helping a restaurant do that. It's just looking for opportunities and advantages. So really good stuff. It's going to take a moment or two for some of the comments to come in chat, but we'll go through the things that you're most thankful for. Jeff.
Let me pipe in an example since you mentioned restaurants. Here's a real-time Blitz response by a top restaurant in Seattle called Canlis. They serve high-end, beautiful, well-served meals at night and also lunch. And their leaders got together right at the very beginning of March when all this started hitting the fan. And they recalibrated. They opened up for bagels and coffee in the morning, drive through their parking lot. Lunch, they went out and bought some industrial cookers to make hamburgers. And they cut their whole menu and made hamburgers and fries. And they became a drive-through parking lot hamburgers and fries restaurant. This is Canlis, fine French and American cuisine.
Yeah.
And then at dinner, they realized people in their neighborhood would love to have a meal at home. They're not going to eat in their car. So they created a single item menu each night that they could make in bulk and make really well to their standards of excellence. And they have a drive-through pickup for meals. And I think they even went to delivery as well. Okay. So they employed all their people. I think 140 people. They kept them all employed. And the whole neighborhood was happy that they were serving bagels and coffee in the morning, burgers at lunch, and great meals on demand delivered to your door at night. That was a creative entrepreneurial approach to a Blitz.
Yeah, I mean, and now they may end up. So first of all, a whole bunch of restaurants are out of business now. So they're going to come out of this actually with a stronger position. I was telling somebody just the other day, in 2008, there were 22,000 real estate agents in San Diego alone. By 2009, there were 7,000. Those 7,000 needed 2008 to put them back into position because it was just completely overrun. So every difficulty is an opportunity. Such great comments, by the way. I'm going to just go through these quickly. Rob says, grateful for never knowing what's next, but sure it'll be amazing. Jim says, certainly thankful for my health. I'm thankful for your health too, buddy. Barry, grateful for his family. His daughter is at school at our dining room table. Boom. Hey, man, let me tell you, that's where to do it. My kids, all four of my kids upstairs, man. And there's something amazing about being able to teach your own kids. I love it. Thankful to be with my son and grandchildren. Robert says, opportunities to move here. Wendell says, thankful for being able to have access to the show. Well, I'm thankful that you're here, buddy. James says, great family, good health, Jesus, God's provision, and our first grandson. What's up, Neil? I knew you were going to jump in and say hello. Good to see you, buddy. David Zetz, I'm thankful for failure. Love that. Growth and opportunity. I have an article called Thank You, Failure. I mean, it's like, it just always adjusts you to the way that you need to go, just like a missile coming off an airplane. Robert says, welcome. I love that. Rob says, I'm stoked about more yes then next week. Diana says, grateful for living in Southern California, my organic fruit and veggie garden. I love it. Thankful for a positive platform which resets my mindsets and recalculates my intentions. By the way, if you spend any time watching the news, you need to stay connected to our program here because you need the positive on the side. Are you going to get his bad news? So you need to come someplace that's going to have good news. All right. No, I have no follow-on question. Just I'm going to pitch it to you real quick, Jeff, for some thoughts, and then I'm going to transition into identity. But let's any thoughts? I want to cut you off.
Well, I want to come back to practically speaking, what do we need to do when we face blitzes or we have big goals that are too big to achieve by ourselves? So a lot of you entrepreneurs already had ideas that are beyond what you could have achieved. Secondly, now you've got the blitz of COVID and economic dislocation and other things. When I said the number one strategy is take a long-term view, if you take a long-term view, you're going to realize you can't beat blitzes alone and you can't achieve great things alone. And so you're going to build the team, and you need to constantly build a team. And one of the challenges for an entrepreneur is after doing things all by yourself and wearing 8 hats, you have to get to a point where you start to delegate, let others do things 80% as well as you, and be okay with that, and let go and ask them to make decisions, grow them, develop them, go out and recruit some partners, be creative in making your business virtually bigger than the payroll is. But to build the team is the true action of taking a long-term view, okay? So now is the time to build a team. Here's a couple ideas. Number one, have you asked your people, what kind of leader are you? Do they really trust you? Are you clear? Do you give them encouragements? Do they feel like you only talk to them when you're disappointed by something? Do a 360 on yourself. Ask people, hey, what's it like to work with me? 0 to 10. And what would move it closer to a 10? Now, that's something we can do in our marriage. Yeah. I want to encourage husbands. You can get free marriage counseling. There's this thing in your house called the wife. She's a built-in marriage therapist. Just go say, baby, 0 to 10, how we doing? And then accept what she says when she says, oh, well, maybe a 3. Don't say, come on, it's at least a 5. And then say, what would it take to move us closer to a 10? And then listen, write it down, get actionable on that. You just got a game plan, dude. Okay. But we can do that with our team.
That's good.
Right? 0 to 10, how we doing? What kind of leader am I? How much clarity is there here? And what do you think would move it more toward a 10? So that's number one, is find out what kind of leader you are in relationships. Number two, start knowing the people on your team more. Find out their story. Find out their backstory. Make sure you know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and tell them, hey, you don't have to become great at your weaknesses unless we hired you in an area where you're using your weaknesses, which wasn't too smart. But you better be really good at your strengths. And I want to make sure this team complements one another in the strengths areas. Okay, so get to know their story, get to know them personally, and really develop and understand their strengths and ask them to steward those. And then work on the trust that it takes to have debate and conflict in your organization. Conflict is the friction that comes up with better ideas. It gets everyone's brain involved. And then it creates a stronger team of leadership. Read Pat Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. You know that you got to have trust at the bottom. That's why I say get to know them and their background and their story. All right. Ask them what they think of you. That'll build trust. Be vulnerable. Yeah. Okay. Then you can have healthy dialogue and debate. Once people have that, they'll buy into the decisions, even if it wasn't a perfect decision. Okay. So build the team through your vulnerability, transparency, getting to know them, and then make sure that they learn and know their strengths, and then put those together in your strategy. So that's what building the team is all about. And I really think that vulnerability of the leader is the starting place. If there's anything you can apologize for, apologize. It isn't weakness, it's strength.
Yeah.
Apologies are strength.
Yeah.
Ignoring your weaknesses and mistakes is crappy, dishonorable, small-minded, immature leadership.
Yeah.
And we see it all around us in culture. But sometimes we found that pattern because we're insecure. That's why I want to talk about identity. I don't get my security from being a first-string quarterback or from my salary or people liking me. I get my security from who made me, what he's done for me, what he says to me. I get my security from relationships, not from performance.
It's interesting what you just said about authenticity, transparency, admitting your mistakes, being humble enough to say, hey, I messed this up. So I spent the last 2 days walking around Washington, and one of the biggest mistakes we've made as a country, and by the way, we have leaders we asked for, okay? So we're Americans, we vote for our people. If you don't like Washington, it's because we did it as people, okay? So part of the issue is if a person running for office admits that they made a mistake, they will not get voted into office, because as Americans, we all pretend that everybody has to be perfect. So then they pretend that they're going to be perfect. And so what we end up with are people who are more than happy to basically lie to you, to tell you that they're perfect. And I thought, when I was walking around Washington, I was thinking, what would it be like if people just literally were able to say, hey, you know what? We passed this bill like 2 years ago, and it turned out it wasn't a very good idea, but we're working on fixing that now. Like that kind of authenticity would actually be disarming, and we could actually get some things done. And I don't mean to go into the political realm, but it just speaks to even us as leaders, just being able to say, hey, you know what? That wasn't my best day, and I'm going to get better, and we're going to do it together. I really like that.
I agree. There's a guy that's written about in the history of the Old Testament named Nehemiah, and Israel was really in bad shape. They'd been exiled to another country, and they tore down the walls of Jerusalem, and this guy looked at the condition of everything, and it really broke his heart. Yeah, and he humbled himself, and even though he was a pretty righteous guy that wasn't out doing crazy, stupid stuff, he apologized to God for his imperfections, and then apologized for all of the sins of the nation. And in that humility, God then gave him an amazing vision. No one thinks these walls could be rebuilt. He got the vision they could if they got everyone working together on their own part of the wall, in their own zip code. Yeah. And he got tons of opposition, and he just said, hey, okay, just keep a sword in one hand and a brick lane, what do they call this, trowel in the other hand. So you'll get better vision and you'll give better leadership when you start with humility and admitting the truth. Okay, it isn't weakness; it's strength. That's so good, man. That's so good. I want to do this to make sure that we get it in. By the way, in about 9 minutes, we're going to take your questions. So start putting those in the chat if you have any questions for Jeff on any topic. Put those into the chat. Just put the word question before your question so that I can see it and make sure that we highlight it. Before I do that, I want to direct your attention to the link below. It's jeffkempteam.com.
jeffkempteam.com. And Jeff, my team is also putting this in the chat as well. I'm going to just pull up this website and show you what's available over here. It's a great resource, by the way. So you can see Jeff's information here. He's got some video resources that are available on his website as well. There is a blog here. Not only that, but you've got his book, which is forwarded by Tony Dungy. There's some great videos on YouTube as well. One in particular where Jeff shares a story about a guy who was on an airplane actually next to Tony Dungy. So make sure that you do that. Just bounce around here, get on his following on social media as well. But really just I think a treasure trove of information there. But I wanted to make sure that you had that resource at your fingertips. So it's Jeff.
Click on the soul coaching, if you would, for a second there. This is pretty cool.
Soul coaching. All right, we're going to click on that. Go ahead.
So there's my old leader, Bill Walsh, who was a better teacher and vision caster than anyone I've ever played for. But I believe that at the heart of a leader is their soul, their faith, their integrity, their marriage, their family, their health, whether or not they're humble, and their confidence comes from character. You can't fake it. So soul coaching may not be something you've thought of before, but that's something that I do for CEOs. I take them away for a day or two. We get away from the rat race and we go right to the root of who are they, what's their identity, what's their vision for life, how are their relationships going, what's their relationship paradigm. All that stuff is the precursor to how am I leading, how am I building a team, how are we coming up with great strategies. Those things, how do I build a great culture? You can't build a great culture till your soul is centered, humble, secure, and loving. You got to be generous and be ready to bless others. So that's what soul coaching is. I do that by Zoom and stuff. September 25th, I'm going to kick off a champions huddle of 10 CEOs where I'll do 2 hours of this type of coaching, and then I'll give everyone a 90-minute individual Zoom coaching. And that might make some of them think, hey, you know what? I want to do one of those days away with Jeff. But think about your soul. Think about your soul, which brings everything together. It's the integrated part of you.
I really like that. So I'm going to quote actually a verse out of the New Testament, 3 John. Barely anybody quotes out of 3 John, by the way. 3 John chapter 1, verse 2 says, which I think there actually is only one chapter. It says, beloved, I pray that in every way you may prosper and enjoy good health as your soul also prospers. So it's John connecting health and financial blessing to a prospering of your soul. And it's an interesting concept that I rarely hear anyone. I've only heard one other person teach this, by the way, a friend of mine named Stephen De Silva, who does financial counseling, has a book called Money and the Prosperous Soul. But the idea of your soul, and if you've been struggling with money, if you've been struggling with health or relationships, part of the reason may be your soul needs to prosper first and then everything else around you. And we could do a whole show on this one topic, but I love that concept. I think it's
we could spend a year on it. The great author of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Chronicles of Narnia, Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
He said that we are not bodies with souls. We are souls with a body.
Yeah.
The real you that was made in that divine spark of amazing image of God, that's eternally valuable, whether you feel it or not, whether your parents made you feel value or not, whether the marketplace is affirming you or not, that real you is a soul. And it goes on forever. So getting anchored and centered in who am I? Where did I come from? Why do I have meaning? What's my purpose? How am I loved and how do I love others? How do I get my relationships to be the center of my life, and then my strategy and my transactions flow out of that? That's why we go to the soul first.
Dude, that is, by the way, for those of you who just joined us and you're like, hey, what are these guys? We're talking, this is, my name is Ed Rush. This is Jeff Kemp. We're talking about how to survive the Blitz. And Jeff just blew my mind. And as you're watching this, I hope that the concept that he just shared there, but by the way, we teach a lot of marketing stuff, entrepreneurship, thinking right, sales, productivity. But this concept, I'm just telling you, dude, It's not that often that I walk away from an interview with a big action that I'm going to take away, and this is really one of them. I love this concept of this prosperous soul. So as you're watching this, like, write that down, make that part of your prayer or meditation today, just to give yourself like a, you know, I did blood work at my doctor last week. We do that. We like look on the scale to see how we're doing. We have all these indicators as to how we're doing physically, but sometimes we don't have indicators as to how our soul is.
Should we give people,
I really like that.
Should we give people a quick coaching, a little help on this?
Do it, man. Let's just roll, dude.
All right. So first, I'd like all of us to realize that the two most important things that shape the way you live and relate to people and do stuff are, number one, your view of yourself.
This is really good, man.
Ed, you've said this over and over. The way you talk to yourself, the conversation you have with yourself is the one that's really dictating whether you're going to survive and overcome and succeed, or whether you're going to spin your wheels and tread water and not succeed. Yeah. How you view yourself, your self-concept, basically it's your identity. Number two is your concept of God. If you feel like there's a source of love and a source of goodness, and that it's separate from evil, which it must be, I don't see how the one who created the most beautiful miracles of the world could also create evil. I think it's pride and opposition and the enemy of God. But anyway, how you think of yourself and how you think of God. And a lot of us don't think of God as a very generous, loving, kind, forgiving, warm, awesome father. Maybe he's distant, maybe he's military, maybe he's religious, maybe he's hit you with the hammer, maybe he's just Santa Claus. Yeah. Maybe, you know, but you don't have an accurate picture of him. So here's my thought. And I did this recently. We had a week at the beach during COVID, which was one of the blessings that came out of it. And I said, this week, God, as I'm reading this book called Father God, I want to have an experience with you where you refather me. I had a good human dad, Jack Kemp.
Yep.
But he couldn't fill everything I needed. I need love. I need identity. I need to know that there's pleasure in me from my father. And I need a place. A place is a calling, something that matters, making a difference. Okay, I need those things. My identity. I need love. I need pleasure, and I need a calling. And when you don't have those, you go looking in all the wrong ways, and you act kind of cocky trying to earn your identity. But your identity, Ed, is not earned. It's received.
Yeah, it's good.
It's relational. So I read this book. I actually brought it in here with me. It looks like this. Father God, daring to draw near. And as I read it, I said, God, help me hear from you what you'd like to say to me. Refather me. So I would say to all of you out there, the way to build up your soul so it's ready to prosper is to get a new image of God and start asking yourself, am I trying to earn my identity based on, social media following or financial success or appearances, or am I receiving my identity from the God that made me and from relationships?
Oh, man.
Okay? And then basically start a process of asking questions of your creator and say, are you real? What do you really like? Show me what you really like. I want to know what kind of father you are. Will you refather me? I just write those questions in my journal, and pretty soon things come to me like that cool Bible verse, 3 John, that came to you, right? So I'm just telling folks, remember, your identity isn't earned, and question where you've been trying to earn it. It's received, and then go find out who is this God that made us and would love us enough to offer his son to die on the cross and take away all the yucky stuff of the world. He's going to fix everything someday. Our souls are going to be rejoicing if we know him. So ask him, refather me. Show me what I don't know about you and about myself.
Really good, man.
That'll fill your soul.
So I wrote 2 things down: how you view yourself and your concept of God. Was there a third one that I missed, or was that?
No, those 2 things are the most important. But what I recommended was a process of asking God to refather you. So
really good.
If you're a person who reads the Bible, don't just read it like a Christian. Read it like a son. Or if you're a woman, read it like a daughter, a beloved daughter of an amazing daddy. If you're a person who prays, don't just pray to the Santa Claus that you hope helps you. Pray to a father that is intimate and wants to have an experience with you. Personalize it all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's so much here, but so first of all, I'll tell you, it's always, I've been through this process, man, probably more than 100 times, but every time I'm reminded of it, like you just remind me, so I had probably similar to you. So my dad was in professional sports for 32 years. He was one of the leading referees in the NBA, as you know. My mom is in the Basketball Hall of Fame as a coach. So
Cool.
basically, I had two coaches. I'd have a mom and a dad. I mean, by the way, they were great mom and dad, so don't get me wrong, and I love them a lot. But I had two coaches, and my tendency was to grow up viewing my identity as connected to performance, like a lot of athletes do. I'm sure you had the same.
I did too.
So then viewing God and viewing yourself, hey, when I'm doing great, I'm feeling great, and when I'm not, I don't think it's time to like. And that's not what a father does. And the interesting thing about what you just said, I love this, is when you so most people look at their concept of God as some sort of like servant, or like I'm like in trouble. And if you think about that way, here's how screwed up your prayers get, because servants don't, like a son would walk into a dad and be like, hey, we gonna go play baseball today or what? That's right. What a son does. A servant's like, oh dear, might I, and the way that you communicate is fundamentally comes out of who you think you are,
Exactly. Here's, I'm trying to remember the chapter in the Bible. I think it's in Matthew. It's the story of the prodigal son and the proud, legalistic, religious, moralistic, mean older brother and their amazing dad. Okay, it's really a story about a dad.
Yeah.
More so than the dude that took the money and run, to quote Steve Miller Band. In that story, in that story, the young brother says, Dad, I want all the money. I don't want to do it your way. I'm out of here. Disrespects him totally, takes the money, goes off, starts partying, lives the wild life, and spends it all on partying and prostitutes. And then he learns his lessons fairly quickly and he gets humble.
Yeah.
And when he gets humble, he comes back to Dad, tail between his legs, expecting just to get to be a servant out in the barns. Instead, his dad jumps off the porch, runs toward him because he'd been looking for him. But he didn't chase him, did he? He didn't chase him and nag him and say, what an idiot you are doing all this. He let him go. Love has to let people go and not put expectations on them. This dad ran off the porch, embraced him, gave him a coat, a ring, new sandals, and fired up the Barbie and got a big grill going. Let's barbecue and celebrate the son is here. The older brother couldn't handle this grace. He said he'd been earning his identity and he was mad. And that's the contrast between being given your identity, receiving it, and earning it. The older brother couldn't enjoy all the great gifts the dad gave him because he was stuck trying to earn it. He was stuck, in legalism. The other one was enjoying grace and relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's who your Heavenly Father is. That dad, that's what this God is like.
It's good, man. That's really good. And whenever chat just all of a sudden stops, that means people are like, what? So that's this last 15 minutes, man. Let me tell you, I know you're all watching this, but this was for me. Okay. So you're participating in a counseling exercise for me right now. It's great. The website's below, by the way. It's Jeff Kemp Team. Jeff, we got like 4 minutes. I'm going to come to you in a moment just for a wrap up. I'm going to let you send us off. If you did just join us at the very end here, this is How to Survive the Blitz. My name's Ed Rush. I'm here with Jeff Kemp. And click the like button below, by the way. This is a great interview. Click the share button and click the subscribe button with that little bell next to it. That would be a big, huge favor to me. And so we're just going to wrap up here. I'll just tell you, go to the website below. Make sure you get connected to Jeff. Look, this interview, we went deeper on this topic than we've gone in a really long time. For those of you who listen to me teach how to hear from God, some of this fathership stuff connects directly to that. And so if you do want to go a little bit deeper, go to YouTube, look for How to Hear from God about your business, and you'll see the show that we did on that as well. Some really great comments. Thank you, Andy Falco. Melanie said some great things about my parents, and they're great. They really are. I just hung out with my mom this weekend. Jeff, he says, David Zett says, I'm so fired up right now. And Melanie says, thank you for this positive platform, which resets my mind. So dude, let's do a wrap up. I want to give you the last word. It's been so good, man. We talked about how to overcome the obstacles and blitzes. We went through gratitude, have a hopeful vision. We talked about identity and who you are and went deep in that. That was incredible, dude. Take us home. What are your final thoughts?
We've talked about the economy and some of the dislocations of the blitz that COVID has created. In my case, when all my speeches got canceled on March, my wife said, you know what, Jeff, this is awesome. You've been trying to write that book, and now you can stay home and write it. So that was the opportunity for me. Secondly, we had a son from New York City and his wife and grandson that got to move into our home for 2 months while New York was a mess.
Oh, wow.
And so I got grandparenting that I never would have had with this 3-year-old little Jack Kemp grandson of mine. And we even made some relational healing and progress that we needed in that relationship. So focusing on relationships is always going to be the best strategy in a blitz. Okay? And I want to remind you guys of what Tony Bennett, the coach of University of Virginia, said. His team is the one that laid an egg in the Sweet 16 and lost in the first round to the number 16 seed back in 2018. Yeah. They were ranked number 1. Well, he embraced the pain, handled it honestly, told his team to learn every lesson they could, but said, we will overcome this. And I learned something. I learned that even though I was embarrassed as ever and I lost worse than I ever thought, I'm okay. God still loves me. My wife still loves me. I have my family, and I am okay. My identity isn't loser. He said, but I'll tell you this. I am more dedicated to helping you guys become winners than ever before, and I think we can win the championship. Here's Tony Bennett's quote. Adversity handled the right way buys you a ticket to a place you could never go any other way.
Ooh.
Blitzes are necessary for the soul to develop. Blitzes are necessary for new ways to look at things. Blitzes are necessary to make decisions when you've been dallying and delaying for too long.
Yep.
Blitzes are necessary to look at the world in a new way. Blitzes are necessary for us to wake up to the pain our Black and African-American brothers and sisters are facing. And I don't care if there's some exaggerated and inaccurate stuff out there. You go talk to anyone who has a minority background, particularly African-American, with 400 years of slavery and Jim Crow and families split up and a welfare system and negative impressions on the news each night that paint it as if there's no Black men in the home, no good Black dads, no good Black marriages. That is BS. There are a ton of awesome families. Yeah. Research shows some of the best connected dads these days are African-American from the intimate with their kids standpoint. So let's go back to the soul message. Use this blitz to see every soul. Let's start seeing people as neighbors and as souls. You know, if there's a politician you can't stand, they're a soul. Be generous to them. Debate their ideas, but be generous to their soul. Let's start bringing peace, okay? And then I'll wrap it up, Ed, by reminding us that the pathway of developing your soul is saying, I really want to know who I am, and I need to receive that from my maker. And maybe I need to let go of a performance-based mentality that says I suck or I'm rotten or listens to a voice of shame. Shame is false. I think that comes from the devil. Guilt is real. It says, hey, you messed up, but you're not bad. You just messed up. You did something bad. So go to the Father, ask him what he's really like. Read the stories of the Bible. Find out from Jesus. Read his life, the book of John, Matthew. Read these books. Ask God to refather you. And ladies, you are a beloved daughter of an amazing king, and he takes pleasure in you because Jesus loved you, and he gives you the forgiveness that he purchased and the righteous standing with God that he purchased. And men, you're not a schmuck. God doesn't just love you, he likes you. He thinks you're a stud, and he gives you credit for who you'll become in the future if you just accept your identity and start living into it. So let's stop striving and performing and impressing and resisting apology and not forgiving people and judging. Don't compare yourself to the other entrepreneurs. Don't compare yourself to Ed Rush. That's a losing equation. Ask God who you're supposed to be and go bless the heck out of people and build relationships. Vertically, with your God, horizontally, with your family first, your team, and then your clients.
That is a great wrap up, man. Let me just tell you, make sure you go to the website below. Tell Jeff thank you on his social media platforms. I've got nothing else to say other than thank you, Jeff Kemp. You're the man, dude. So thanks for coming and joining on the show. Would love to have you back. We are. It would be awesome. And hang with me because I want to ask you a couple questions about your coaching, actually. But don't forget, next Tuesday, we're coming right back. We've got a show that we're going to do on how to get to yes that you do not want to miss. We're going to wrap up now. EdTalks Live is